In this video, I'm going to be talking about 10 things that you should never do on YouTube or your channel might get banned, especially as a small creator. And once you get banned, it's very, very difficult to get your channel back. Even if you think you were in the right, it can take absolutely months. So these 10 things are really things that you want to be avoiding to protect your channel at all costs. The first is spammy comments. Now, we've all seen the sub for sub type of comments, and they've kind of started to go out of fashion, but there are new variations of these popping up, which are let's all unite as small creators together. I see them a lot on this channel, and I see them a lot on other channels, or people saying, hey, if you subscribe for me and support me, I'll support you. It's all basically still the same thing, which is sub for sub, which is against YouTube's policies. And if you start to say the same thing over and over, such as subscribed, 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 which people often do as well, you're liable to be registered in YouTube's eyes as a bot, and they will obviously delete bot accounts all the time. This is often when you see your subscribers go up and down quite a bit or in a big number suddenly. That's YouTube deleting a load of bot accounts and sort of realigning the true views and subscribers on your channels. So they're always removing what they consider bot accounts. So if you are doing this sort of sub for sub, even in an innocent way on other people's channels, in the comments, then it's a terrible idea. It could get your channel blocked, banned, or shadow banned. So you really don't want to be doing that. And also, it's not good for your channel. It's a terrible idea because you're going to be getting the wrong people coming to your channel. You should be trying to get the right people and creating good data on your channel so that you can attract more of the same. If you get all the random people in the comments coming to your channel, it's actually going to impact your channel's growth in a negative way, not in the positive metrics that are basically vanity metrics on YouTube. The second point is over-tagging or keyword stuffing in your descriptions. Now, when we're talking about tags, there are hashtags, which you're allowed about 60 of, and generally I recommend not having more than, say, 5 hashtags. You don't want to do too many because they will lose their credibility anyways or get diluted. And hashtags are the sort of pound sign ones or the number sign that you sort of see. And you only want a few of those. They're not the tags that we put below our video. They're something different. But tags as well, you don't want to do too many irrelevant ones there as well. You do want to use as many tags as you can. You want to use the sort of 500 characters that you're allowed within that tag section. But if you use more than 60 of the hashtags, YouTube will, again, lower the value. They don't have a huge amount of value anyways, but they will start to potentially shadow ban or think of you as a bot or someone doing spammy things. They don't like anybody trying to game the system anymore, which is why keyword stuffing is also against their policies. Now, keyword stuffing is where you put all the tags below your video and then you try to do SEO purposes. You try to mention those hashtags or you actually just put them in there, which I see people doing long lists of keywords in their video descriptions. And this is keyword stuffing. This is against their policies. So it can, again, get you banned or get you a warning or essentially get you shadow banned because they think you're doing spammy things. So you don't want to be trying to game the system by leveraging the tags or keyword stuffing in your video descriptions. The third one is directly copying people. Now, you can take inspiration. This is a big thing that even the biggest YouTubers do. They take formats that are working on other channels and they reuse them. And they even look at their competitors' videos and see what's working for them and what outliers and rising channel ideas that they've got going on. And then you take those ideas and you steal like an artist and you make them your own. And then you create content out of them and you can maybe ride some of that momentum and that wave that their channels were getting, and you're able to get a few more views. So creating similar content can be a great strategy. This is a great thing that all of us do, and you'll be surprised by how many of the big channels out there are doing this. I see the same format for thumbnails and titles getting used again and again and again. And as you get used to seeing them and you use tools like creator hooks and other tools that show you all of these great formats that keep working over and over, you see all of the channels using them and often using them more than once. So we all steal to some degree. We all are getting inspiration. So as I like to say, we're all stealing like artists. We're getting inspiration from other channels. But if you start directly copying, even if you're making it original like this, and you take their script or their transcript and you basically just read it word for word or almost the same. Maybe you put it into, say, ChatGPT and you say, tweak this slightly. Unless it's going to rewrite it completely, it's only going to tweak it a tiny bit. And YouTube is cracking down on this a little bit. Maybe it's because of AI, I don't know. But they don't like it. So you may not necessarily get banned unless it's seen as directly copying, in which case it could. You would potentially lose rankings on that. But you would get shadow banned, where they basically will flag you in the system as copying other people. And it doesn't like that. YouTube ideally wants original content on there. They want similar content, but they want original content. So you really don't want to be directly stealing. Inspiration, yes. Sort of copying ideas, yes. But directly stealing and taking transcripts or even changing people's transcripts into different languages, which is something I see people doing that they think is okay. And it's not. Within the copyright system, within YouTube, we are told how much people are using of our footage, and it's up to us whether we flag them. I've got hundreds of people that are stealing different parts of my content. And often if they're not getting views, I just send an email warning. But there's a lot of people out there, you are going to get noticed. If it's not by the creator, then it will be by YouTube itself. The fourth one is more of a security one, and that's to not use your email, the same email for your channel that you use for, say, support on the channel itself or inquiries and people contacting you, or even in general. And the mistake that people make is they have their personal email and then they create a channel based on their personal YouTube account, and it's all one ecosystem. And then they're using that personal email on a number of different websites out there. And what happens is there are security leaks on many different platforms all of the time. Even Google and Apple, they have security breaches. And that means your contact information gets shared out and shared around on the dark web and also just on the web in general. And it's there for people to take and potentially hack your channel. So the more you use that same email address, the more times your password and everything else is getting shared around. So as much as you can keep changing things, the more you expose it to the internet, the more exposed you potentially are. So by having a separate email for your channel for the login that you then don't use for anything else, it's only ever been entered into the channel and YouTube itself. So therefore, it's pretty unexposed to the rest of the internet. And that gives you a much stronger chance of not being hacked in the long run. And you will be surprised by how many channels these days are getting hacked. That's why you want to add the additional layers of security and so on. But this is probably the best one because it's just your information is just not getting exposed. So unless YouTube gets directly exposed, you're going to be pretty safe. And what happens is when people do get hacked, they inevitably do fraudulent things. They start trying to sell things like Bitcoin in people's comments and so on. And that means that there's fraudulent activity and you're breaching all of the rules of the channels, of your channel and YouTube and Google and everything in general, so that you're then going to get your channel banned. And what happens is inevitably they see this fraudulent activity, they assume it's you, and then you get banned. Now, you can maybe fight to get it back, but again, as a small creator, this gets more difficult because your avenues of contacting YouTube and getting help becomes even more difficult. So you really want to protect your security and be careful where you are sharing that email address. So as I said, if you can, have the email as a separate one. So if you're already using the same email everywhere, you may want to change that and double down on two-step verification and other security measures. The next one is spammy brand deals. So this again comes back to the type of behavior that would happen if you were getting hacked. But as you start to grow, maybe it's already happening for you, you start to get a huge amount of emails from people that want to sponsor your videos. And some of them are legit, but when you're small, they're going to be crappy. And honestly, I would just not, I would create your own products and just ignore it 100%. But for many of us, we do want to do sponsors as we get bigger. So you want to be either getting an agent or you want to be contacting directly the sponsors that you want, or want to be really cherry picking the emails and validating that they're real and they're direct contact and that they are, basically trustworthy sources of sponsorship. Because a lot of the emails that you're going to be getting are phishing emails where they're either trying to get your details, again, to hack you. So this is potentially how people get their account hacked. So they may have you logging in or doing different things with your email, so that they can then get your information and hack your channel, or they're just terrible products that you're going to damage your account, because there's a lot of different software companies that try to sponsor people, and these may be complete cons, they may be scams. So you may think, great, I'm finally getting sponsored, first few $100s for my video, but then what happened is the people that signed up, fraudulent activities and things happen to them, and you will be associated with that. So you're opening yourself up for potential issues. So you want to be really, really careful of these spammy emails that you're getting. You may see them. Often they sound too good to be true, but what they tend to do is they start off low, and then they start to say, oh, we've increased our budget, and then they keep emailing you, and you may fall into the trap of thinking that they're real, and most of the time they're not. So just avoid them, ignore them. The next one is misleading content, or clickbait. Clickbait is where we say one thing on the title and thumbnail, and then people get into the video and it's something completely different. Now, we want a little bit of clickbait because you do want some curiosity and triggers to get people to click on your video and thumbnail. You have to win that race. There's no way around this. Whether you like the term clickbait or not, you do have to use a little bit of psychology in your thumbnails and title to drive curiosity to get people to click. And then you want to deliver on that and try to keep rehooking in the video to get people to keep watching. But there's a difference between that and outright pure clickbait. And that is sort of the bait and switch, where you're doing something very different inside the video that then annoys people and they bounce off it. And if YouTube sees you doing this, it's against their terms and conditions, again, against their policies. So you can potentially get flagged and get a ban or get a warning at least. So they really don't like that misleading content. So make sure that even if it's unintentional, you're not misleading people with your content, or you're not lying in the videos. If you're making massive promises that are obviously not true and overhyped, then again, this is misleading content. So try to be truthful. I feel like this should go without saying. Like, you can fall into the trap of accidentally doing a bit of clickbait, and okay, fine. Just be careful of that. They're not going to penalize you if it's, just a little bit more, but your subscribers will punish you and they'll sort of have a go at you and say that's misleading. But if they report you, that's where you start to have a problem. But if you're outright lying in the videos and overhyping, then you could get in a lot of trouble. So just be very careful of doing that because, again, it goes against YouTube policies. Another one, which I think many of us used to do things like this because we like hacks, and hacks when it comes to doing things online are a great, people love any type of hack, but YouTube doesn't like these. So if you're openly teaching people how to avoid things within YouTube, YouTube is a platform that follows lots of rules and things from the governments and also from their own rules and policies. And if you're trying to teach people how to get around things, such as going into the code to get people's transcripts, such as teaching people how to use third-party softwares to rip people's videos and download people's videos, or how to get around getting people some of the contact details of people's websites, you have to be very careful of this. Because if you're scraping or doing anything that teaches people to get around different softwares and tools, it's something that's frowned upon, and they don't like this. So you've got to be very careful. And I noticed that people were getting in trouble, especially for the downloading videos one, or going into the code and seeing if a channel was monetized. I even did this myself. And although it's an innocent one, it's not such a bad one. You have to be careful anything that goes into the code. So if you're teaching anybody on how to get around anything, then yeah, you want to be careful of that. Because even though it's innocent, maybe you're just saying to use it for your own channel and your own knowledge, you're not actually doing anything bad. You have to be careful that you might get flagged for it, even if it was innocent. And I've heard of people getting in trouble for this. They do eventually get their channel back, or they do get the strike lifted off of them. But you might have to fight that for a number of months. So I really would avoid any of those type of hacks where you're cheating a system of some kind, because that probably goes against somebody's rules. Another one that we all do to some degree, but sometimes is not allowed, is that we use other people's faces and details in our thumbnails or even in our tags. Now, if you're talking about someone and you're doing, say, a review on them, then therefore you could potentially, within fair use an image of them in the thumbnail, and you could also put a tag of their name in your video description in the tags, and maybe even in the description of the video. But if you're just adding that metadata, those keywords and those tags to try and boost your video to be similar to another one for an SEO hack, that is not allowed. You can't do that. You have to be at least talking about the person in there, so that video has to be relevant to that. Otherwise, that's misleading. And also, you have to make sure that you have the right to use that imagery within your thumbnail and within your video as well. So you could actually get strikes for using other people's information in your videos just to try and elevate yourself. So as a rule, try not to use other people's content. But again, if it's within fair use, which is such a minefield, as a rule, I would say if you didn't create it, if it's not your content, then just don't use it. Because, or if you didn't pay for it, if you don't have a license for it, so if it's not stock footage, if it's not royalty-free music, if it's not something you bought the license for, then I would just wouldn't. With that said, fair use, there is an area of this. It's very gray, and it depends how you're using it. If you're using it in a negative way, then people may come after you more. But fair use, you've got the review channels, people doing anything with opinion-based stuff or review-wise, then they tend to get away with it. But even if you see all these movie review channels, they're getting not strikes, but they're getting people doing copyright things against them all the time. So they're always fighting battles, and they're probably winning because it does fall under fair use. But do you really want to be getting notifications and potentially, in some circumstances, if you do it wrong, actually getting sued? So you do want to be careful of using other people's information. Most of the time, if you're innocently using it, like we do have other people's images in our thumbnails sometimes when we're talking about them, most of the time nothing's going to happen. But just be aware that using it just for your own benefits without actually talking about that is not going to fall under fair use, and you are open to getting yourself into trouble. And this last one, which I think should be pretty obvious to all of us, but it's not for most people, is to follow the rules of YouTube and also Google AdSense. So if you're creating videos to try and monetize them in terms of ads, then you also have to follow the AdSense rules as well as YouTube's rules. So you have to really read through those and make sure that you understand them. And this could be how you use swearing. You are allowed to do certain levels of many different things. But if you're talking about controversial topics, and these days who might get offended, who might not, and who could get upset, would it be considered bullying? Would it be considered ad worthy in the sense that would maybe people not want to show ads on those particular type of videos or topics? Or you're talking about war, guns, drugs. There's so many different things you can't really talk about, or you have to be careful talking about, that you need to understand the rules. So make sure that you understand those rules. Otherwise, you're going to get strikes, you're going to get demonetized, you're going to get age restricted, and it just becomes a minefield. So the first thing I would say to anybody is just understand the rules and try and stay as clean as possible depending on the goals of your channel. Yes, controversy and polarizing channels grow much faster, but you run the risk of breaking and breaching or walking a gray line of all of those different types of rules. So really understand the rules for YouTube and Google in general so that you can win, because it's a pain in the butt having to sort of firefight and continuously getting videos. And I know this when I used to grow faceless channels. Getting a video age restricted even means that you get massively limited. So a video that could have gotten millions of views only gets 500,000, which is still pretty good. But if you're in the entertainment space, and obviously that's going to kill your reach. So there you go. Those are the main things I would never do and try to avoid doing on YouTube. Now, if you've got any questions, just ask in the comments below. And if you would like more help growing your channel, I will put links in the video description to more training. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.